Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
Baseball season? Are you telling me it's almost baseball season? I can't wait. I really can. Seeing the Phillies take the field, throw the ball around, hearing the baseball hit the mitt, watching guys take swings and take hacks. Oh, it's a beautiful sight. It really is. Now, I'm not the most optimistic person in the world when it comes to this baseball team because I think that there are so many flaws and so many holes with this team still to this day. But I'm just excited for baseball to be back and see the atmosphere, see the dirt, see people running from the dugout to the field. Oh, it's great. It really is great. And Matt Klentak spoke to the media. And to be fair, it wasn't the worst press conference in the world, especially after we just heard the Houston Astros speak. And you heard Alex Bregman talk and Justin Verlander talk. Frauds. They're frauds. I can't stop laughing and enjoying the pain that they will feel based off of the media being in their face and being annoying, and for them to get abused on the road. They deserve it all, and I can't wait. You can just see the look on their faces. They are so upset with themselves, and they should be, because it was a sick joke what they decided to pull. They got their championship, whoop-de-doo, so you're going to have to live with the events. You're going to have to live with the repercussions from doing something so brutal. The entire sport hates you. All the fans will now look at everything you've done throughout your career and criticize it, as they should. But anyway, getting back on track, the Philadelphia Phillies, it wasn't the worst press conference in the world. It also wasn't even the worst that Matt Klentak had here. Because if you remember the press conference when Gabe Kapler got fired, that was the most embarrassing thing in the world. You had Klentak praising the guy, saying how great he was, yet the Phillies were kicking him to the curb. It didn't make any sense. But who cares about the Gabe Kapler era? Because it's now the Joe Girardi era. And that's a beautiful thing to my ears. It really is. It gets me going. It puts a smile on my face. Joe Girardi, if there's one thing that makes me feel so good when it comes to the Phillies, besides Bryce Harper, of course, it's Joe Girardi. Hearing the guy speak. Hearing him talk to the media. He was asked about sign stealing and how he felt about it. He said, you know what my job is? To make sure we do everything we can so other people don't steal our signs. That's what he's worried about. All right, fellas, let's go. Let's come together. Let's come to a conclusion to hide our stuff from everybody else, because other people are going to be doing certain things and we know it. We don't know how they're going to do it, so let's focus on how we can hide it so no one else can go out and get it. That's how his mind works. Protecting his goods. Not so much worried about what other people are doing. And he said everything happens for a reason. They lost in the not in the World Series. They lost to the Astros that season. Well, it all led to him being here in Philadelphia, and that's how he sees it. He said he trusted the guy upstairs. Now, listen, I just love the way this guy approaches the media. It's night and day from the weirdo and Gabe Kapler. I couldn't stand the guy. Now, before I answer the mailbag questions that were sent to me, we need to hear a word from my sponsor, SeatGeek. Are you looking to go to an NBA game, an NHL game, or even a concert? If you use the promo code BROADS at SeatGeek's checkout page, you will receive $20 off of your total purchase. It's a no-brainer. That's free parking. Use the promo code BROADS today. Have you seen Scott Kingery? Have you seen Scott Kingery? What has he eaten? What has he lifted? What has he injected into himself? When I see his picture on my phone, I can't stop laughing. Like, how did this man transition to this? Hopefully, this allows him to take an even bigger step in his career at the plate. But it almost seems like a dream. Like, it almost seems impossible that he transformed into that big of a dude. He's yoked. He's absolutely yoked. JT Realmuto beefed up. Now, a ton of players beef up. But whoa, with Scott Kingery. For the size that he is, he got huge. And I can't wait to see how he produces out on the field. I can't wait to see what that really means for him at the plate. He's also going to have to realistically play, third base? Is he going to be a stud third baseman now? I didn't mind him playing outfield, to be honest with you. That would be my dream. If you can really fix this thing up, it would be to put Scott Kingery in center field and get a legit third baseman, a Nolan Arenado, a Chris Bryant. But that does not seem to really be the case. I want to touch on a couple things that Matt Klentak said in the press conference before I answer questions. He was asked about pitching. He was asked if he believes that they have enough pitching to win. And he responded by saying, yes, their goal, they weighed a ton of options. Their goal was to get somebody who will be at the front of the rotation. They could have gotten options where they could fill out 5 spots, but those 5 spots wouldn't be super strong. It would be Aaron Nola, Jake Arrieta, and then some guys that are better than, say, Vince Velasquez and things like that. Or they could approach it and get a legit number 2 Zack Wheeler type player, and then they have enough to fill out the back half, and that's the approach they went with. I don't necessarily disagree with them, but I also feel like they could have done both. I think they could have gotten Zack Wheeler and one other starter, which would have helped tremendously, because then you would have Nola, Zack Wheeler, whoever you went out and got, and then Jake Arrieta would have been your 4th, and you could have had Zach Eflin as your 5. Joe Girardi was asked about, does anyone look good out there? And he said, Nick Pivetta. Yeah, Nick Pivetta with this tone. Now, here's the thing. You can watch Nick Pivetta throw in a spot like now and say, yeah, Nick Pivetta's got stuff. We've been screaming it forever. He has stuff. We know he has stuff. But he can't put it together on the field emotionally, mentally. He falls apart. He collapses. He throws tantrums out on the bump. That's the problem with Nick Pivetta. But that's the way Matt Klentak approaches. Then he talked about the bullpen, because it wasn't a question where it was just, how are the starters? It was pitching as a whole. And they approached the bullpen totally different. They went with numbers. They went with analytics. Now, the bullpen scares the hell out of me. They believe that Sir Anthony Dominguez is just going to be some stud. They expect David Robertson to try and make a comeback. They bring in Tommy Hunter on a deal. I don't know if there's enough in there to really satisfy me. And that's something Klentak even stated. He has no clue how this is going to shape out. Well, that's not good. Your GM doesn't know how this is going to shape out. It shows me he's just throwing stuff at the wall to see if anything sticks. But there's numbers to support this approach to the bullpen. That's concerning to me. I don't love it, to be honest with you. I don't like going with all these players. But he made a point. There was once a time where they threw money at bullpen guys, and those players would not be able to stay healthy. They were not helping the team during stretches throughout the later parts of the season because they were banged up. So they tried to switch their philosophy with it. Only time will tell if it will work out. He was asked about Chris Bryant, and he said, when there's a player on the market like that, the Phillies are going to be calling. They're going to see what they can do. By the way, but before we move on from the pitching real quick, something just popped into my head. He did mention Spencer Howard. He mentioned Spencer Howard and how he will contribute to the major club at some point this season. That is beautiful. That I'm all in for. Sign me up for some Spencer Howard. Let's not play around with all these prospects and wait for them and wait for them and wait for them and wait for them. Let's call them up. Let's throw them in the fire, because it's 2020 right now when it comes to baseball. Not just baseball, when it comes to life. But in 2020, when it comes to baseball, players are getting caught up early. Juan Soto's doing his thing. Ronald Acuna's doing his thing. Call the damn players up and let's see what we got. Also, with Zack Wheeler, there is something called Streamer. And what that is, it's a system that generates numbers and projects numbers. You want to hear what they project, Zack Wheeler? Warning, it's not pretty. 11-10. A 4.13 ERA. Ew, I hope not. A 1.23 whip in 31 starts. Just shy of 200 strikeouts and 53 walks. If his ERA is over 4, I'm disturbed, I'm bothered, and I'm super disappointed and underwhelmed with Zack Wheeler. I know he's not a Cy Young guy, even though he spoke out to the media and said that he wants to be a Cy Young guy this year. I know he's not. but I don't think he's a 4 ERA type guy either. We've been watching the Mets play for quite some time because they're in the division. We've seen Zack Wheeler pitch a bunch. He's not so great at the start, and he's phenomenal during the back end, so that totally makes some of his numbers look different or skewed at times. He will help this team, no doubt about it. But if those numbers come true, if that is what we're getting, 11-10 and 4.13 ERA, yeah, I'm not feeling great about it. Now, the win-loss stat for pitchers, I'm not a big believer in. It's not a pitcher stat, a win-loss. No, that's a team stat. You can pitch great. You can allow 1 run or 2 runs, and you lose the baseball game, and you end up getting an L. That's not fair. That's not how it works. You pitched your ass off. So I don't put too much stock in the wins and losses, but when it comes to that ERA, no way in hell. I'll be crushed if those are the numbers we get out of him. But back to the Kris Bryant thing. The luxury tax came into play with that conversation as well. The luxury tax was not a hard number for this team. If they were able to go out and get someone who will truly benefit this squad and truly make a difference, like an elite difference, they would absolutely go out there and make it happen. To me, that's a Kris Bryant, but who knows if the Cubs were asking for too much. Now you're hearing that it's possible they're trying to spark up the conversation between the Phillies, the Braves, and the Nationals to get Bryant by saying there might be a swap, Bryant for Nolan Arenado. My thing is, if you're the Phillies, you can't allow him to go in this division. The Braves lost Donaldson. You can't allow him to go to the Braves. The Nationals lost Rendon. You can't allow him to go to the Nationals. You need to either find a way to get him or make sure nobody else in the division gets him. I am getting the juices flowing, though. No doubt, I am. Just because I can't wait to hear the ball hit the bat. I can't wait to hear the umpire on opening day when I see Aaron Nola throw the first strike. That's him calling a strike. I don't know who the hell does that, but that was my best shot at it. Arrieta feels optimistic about himself and this team. Thinking this team is a playoff type squad. He feels good. He said he feels healthy. He was able to have a good offseason because he had the surgery last season. So he had a good offseason. He was able to feel like himself. He wasn't capable of throwing certain pitches, and that throws everything off. I don't know what to think about Arrieta. Until I see it, I'm not going to believe it because I fell in that trap before. A couple times now. Not happening. Won't allow it. So I think this is a good time to get the mailbag going. I thought the mailbag would be a great concept to have everyone throw their questions out at me, and I will gladly answer them. So let's start it off with Amadeo, at Amadeo Gracia 98 on Twitter. Do you think that the front office is still planning to make a big move like a Kris Bryant, or are Klentak and Middleton really pushing for young guns like Bohm, Howard, and Hazley to make the big push? I do think it's a little bit late for that to happen. Even Klentak stated that normally once you get into spring training like they are now, big splashes don't happen. Now there's 71 players going into spring training with the Phillies right now. That's mind-blowing. That's absurd. That doesn't make any sense. That's such a huge roster. I don't know. Don't get me started on that conversation. I do think it's over for the Phillies when it comes to Bryant. They expect their young guns to make it happen. And you look at Klentak, you look at his drafts. You see what Hazley did last year, which is a nice piece. But he's not a stud player. He's not a great player. He's a nice piece. He's a 4th outfielder. But I think Klentak might try and get some of his guys going so the fan base can see, hey, I can draft well. Hey, I did pick good people. Once you start seeing them, you will respect my choices. So I think he will start making that push to get his guys inserted into the major leagues because he feels the pressure. Because he's been here for many years, and a lot of fans are not happy with him. And they don't feel like he's doing a great job. So my guess is out on Kris Bryant, and it looks like you will start to see Bohm, Spencer Howard, and Adam Hazley get more time. At TD9116, do you think Reese Hoskins will have a bounce back year? He better. He better. If he doesn't, this team might be screwed. The only way the guy in front of him is going to have a great season and the guy behind him is going to have a great season is if he has a great season. He was abysmal at the end of last year. Now, there's plenty of discussions about where he is mentally right now, the work he did in the offseason, how refreshed he is after the time off and just getting back to the basics and not overthinking things and not worrying about certain things and not processing too much information at the plate. That's all great to say right now, but once you get in that moment and once that there's maybe 4 or 5 games where you go hitless or you strike out a bunch of times, things change and things change quickly. So I like the fact that he's in a good spot now, but that can totally be not where he is in about 3 weeks into the season. Reese Hoskins will be a reason why this team is either in the playoffs or not. If he goes through whatever the hell he went through last season, I will promise you that this team will not be where we want them to be. That's a lot on his shoulders, no doubt. But he's the type of player that can hit 50 home runs, high 40s. 50 home runs. Wishful thinking, bros. But he does have that power. Hell, I'll take 40. Give me 40. Right now, if I said Reese Hoskins can hit 40 home runs in a season, wouldn't you say, yes, I agree? He should be doing that. And that will only help the guys in front of him and the guys behind him. And that's how this team is going to have to go on a roll. They're going to have to out-hit teams, outscore teams. Because guess what? They're 3, 4, and 5 in the rotation. Still not good enough. Next question. At Ryan Mack 818. Who do you believe should be the 5th starter to start the year? Oh, right on cue. Sadly, the answer is Nick Pivetta. Sadly. That is who the 5th starter should be this season. Now, not really. I would have loved for them to go out and get somebody else, push him out of the way, and Eflin would be your 5th starter. But right now, you do have to give him an opportunity because you got a new coach in here, you got a new atmosphere, you got a new manager involved, and he does have the stuff. Maybe Joe Girardi's presence can get something out of him. He's a better stuff guy than Vince Velasquez. He has the better stuff, so you at least give him the chance from the jump, and it's his job to lose. If he loses it, that's on him. But I think based off of skill, you give it to him and see if he can manage it and see if he can make it work this season, but it hasn't worked for a majority of his career. Which goes right into the next question. At KO Primetime on Twitter. Hashtag breakout Pivetta in 2020. Oh, we're doing it again. We are doing this again. Oh, it's painful. Oh, it's painful. It hurts. It really does hurt. The fact that I'm going to watch him go out on the field again after last season, knowing it was the worst time of my life, watching that back end of the rotation, watching guys like Vargas come in and Drew Smiley come in and to pitch over Vince Velasquez and Pivetta, and now we're starting them in the rotation again. I can't even answer that question. It hurts that much. It really does. It's bringing back old times, old miserable times when it's 95 degrees out. It's August, and I'm enjoying some baseball, but I'm not enjoying it because it's a dumpster fire, and it's 7-0 in the first inning. Ew, stop. Next question. We need the next question. This is from Felix. Do you think Zack Wheeler can surpass Aaron Nola in the rotation by the next 2 years? I don't think so, and I don't think that that's a bad thing. I believe Aaron Nola is going to be your guy, unless the Phillies somehow land, obviously not this specific player, but a Garrett Cole in free agency, a Justin Verlander in free agency, those type of players, Aaron Nola is going to be your number one. He's not the greatest number one in the world by any means, but until the Phillies get someone like the two studs that I just mentioned, it will be Aaron Nola and then Zack Wheeler. But that's not a knock on Zack Wheeler. I think that's more of a positive of Aaron Nola, to be honest with you. I think he does have the stuff. We've seen him be in the Cy Young conversation, and if he plays that way, then he can be. The only thing that scares me about Nola is he doesn't have the overwhelming stuff. He doesn't have that pure speed, that pure dominance, that pure I'm going to blow you away stuff. And in today's game of baseball, you need someone throwing a ton of heat. You need a guy that can throw a fastball by everyone. Now, sometimes he does do it, but he's clocking in at 94 miles per hour. That's not what I'm talking about. So to answer your question, I think Aaron Nola will be the number one unless the Phillies go out and grab somebody else who's better than both of them. Next question. What are your thoughts on the MLB playoffs expanding to 14 teams? Now, this is interesting. I'm actually a fan of it. I don't like the whole part where you're picking teams, and if you're the number one seed, you can choose who you're going to play in the next round. No. But if you look at last year, the Cleveland Indians would have made the playoffs in the AL. Can't you argue that going into the postseason that they would have had just as good of a chance to win it all than the Washington Nationals did last season? So I don't think it's a bad idea to add teams and to make the playoff series the best of three instead of a one wildcard game. The baseball purists and the baseball writers would say, well, that's just watering down the playoffs. No, it's not. The Washington Nationals just won the World Series last year. No, it's not. If a team gets hot, a team gets hot. You might see one team get in there in a season where, all right, they didn't have much fight and they didn't have much of a chance, but you'd still watch. If you're a baseball fan, you're still going to watch. And just say the New York Mets get into the mix. It's a baseball city like New York. Even if they're not that good of a team, you're talking about revenue. You're talking about other key factors. You're talking about TV ratings. It's a great idea, in my opinion. More baseball is better. It's not to the point where teams under 500 are going to be playing in the wild card. You're still going to get decent teams, and if they're hot at the right time, then it doesn't matter what their record was as long as they are hot at the right time. And I think you saw that with the Washington Nationals last season. So now we will move on to some of the text that I got. Are the Phillies a true championship contender? And if not, what pieces do they need? That is from Finn from Gettysburg. They're not even close. They're not close. They need maybe two legit pitchers, a real bullpen, a third baseman, and a center fielder, in my opinion. That's what they need. It's a lot. That's why I don't think that they are a legit contender. That might upset some people, but that's reality. John from Morristown asks, Broads, what type of second year will Bryce Harper have? Do you think he can have 45-plus homers and 120-plus RBI? I don't know if he's going to have over 45 home runs. I would love to sit here and say, yes, absolutely. He's going to be that dominant. He's going to be insane. But he might finish with about 37, 38 home runs and another big season when it comes to RBI. That's wishful thinking. That's being a fan and really hoping he can. Now, that's not saying he can't, but if you had to ask me, do I believe he will? No, I think he's going to give you something very similar to last season. And that would be totally acceptable in my eyes. Will from the Jersey Shore. Do you think the Phillies did enough this offseason to address their issues? Or do you think another starter and actual third baseman is needed? How about that? It flowed right into the conversation. I think they need exactly that. They need another starter in the rotation. They need a third baseman, which means they need a center fielder, unless I can live with Scott Kingery playing center field. And they need an entirely legit new bullpen. For the most part. There are a couple pieces here and there. But for the most part, they need a new bullpen. A couple phone calls. Let's hear
them. The 2020 Phillies, truly, to me, the great unknown. I think there's some things from last year that will improve. I think the manager is a definite improvement. I think the coaching staff is an improvement. I think the scouting director is an improvement. Then you go on the field. I like what they've done with the bench, and I don't think their bullpen is going to be as bad as people think it might be as long as everybody's healthy. The two issues to me are the 3 through 5 starters, and then position-wise, can Scott Kingery actually play third base? And can Adam Hazley actually play center field at the major league level? So I'm trusting Girardi. There's a lot of pressure on the manager and coaching staff. They're basically thinking that the change in the manager and coaching staff is going to elevate the players on the field. We'll have to see.
I do think there's something to be said about Joe Girardi and how he will change the atmosphere and he will change the way that this team thinks and the way that this team approaches games and the long 162-game season in its entirety. And that does make me feel more comfortable than, say, a Gabe Kapler here. I don't know how you can feel so confident about the bullpen. Not that I'm saying you're feeling confident about them, but you're saying you don't think it's going to be as bad as some other people might think unless they stay healthy. And that's my whole concern is, can they stay healthy? They're throwing a bunch of crap at the wall and hoping something sticks based off of numbers, but they're factoring in guys who have had a bunch of injuries over the last season or so. I just can't feel that confident moving forward with this group.
Yo, bros, I don't know, man. I want to believe in the Phillies, but after last season, I just can't do it, man. They frustrated me so much. I can't get into it. I can't. Please give me some, motivation. I need it. I need my Phillies motivation ASAP.
I can't give you that because I'm on the same way as you. I'm feeling the same way as you. But I'm not going to not watch them, or I'm not going to not be engaged, and I'm not going to not be excited. I'm going to be full in. I'm going to be all in. I'm going to be watching every single game. But I don't feel great about it. When I see the win total come out around 85, what does that tell me? It tells me that they're really not going to be that great. If they're set at 85, and Vegas is wrong sometimes, but if they're set at 85, that's not a legitimate team. Now, can Joe Girardi beef something up and really get the troops on the same page and do something that he did before early in his career and bring a squad that didn't have all the talent in the world and make a little bit of noise? It's very possible. I'm not throwing that out there and saying it can't happen because it totally can happen. But I'm on the same page as you. I don't feel great about this team right now. And even if they go out to a hot start, I've stated this plenty of times, but if they go out to a hot start, I'm happy. I want them to do that. It's better than the alternative, but I also want to see what they're like in July and August because over the last few seasons, it's been bad. But it's also been bad because they have a manager, or had a manager, who did not know how to keep everyone together.
I was thinking with the over-under, how many games back the Phillies will be to the Braves this year. I'm thinking about 9.5 is an over-under, even with Cole Hamels injured to start the season. Oh.
Classic Braves fan checking in. Cole Hamels is injured, and that's a tough bounce for him. We obviously have a connection to Cole Hamels, and you want to see guys like that compete out there, especially being at the back end of his career. It would have been fun, and I don't know how long he's going to be out for, but it will be a significant amount of time. So it's just a horrible thing to see to a respected veteran in this league, even though he went to the Atlanta Braves. 9.5 games back. Let's just say the Phillies end around 85 because it seems like Vegas is normally close to those numbers. Say they finish with 83, then you can say, yeah, right, 9 games to that. Will the Braves be in that area? Yeah, probably. I'm not going to knock it and say the Braves won't be 9 games over the Phillies by the end of the season because the Braves are a better baseball team than the Fightin' Phils. It might be around that ballpark. Maybe it's 6, maybe it's 7. Who knows? All I know is I'm not juiced thinking this team is going to win the division or anything like that, but I'm juiced to watch Phillies baseball, so I got to find the happy medium when it comes to discussing this team. I love seeing Andrew McCutchen take swings. I love seeing Scott Kingery beefed up, Bryce Harper with his headband on. Like, I'm so excited to watch them take the field, but I still don't feel that great about them when it comes to a legit playoff run or anything like that. So take that for what it is. Thank you, everyone, for the Phillies mailbag questions. Hit that thumbs up button and subscribe, and I will see you next time.